everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monique. If you're new to this channel, I upload videos weekly about style and travel. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you'd like to take the time and subscribe, because the YouTube algorithm was telling me that 80% of you are not subscribed to my channel. So please click that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Today's topic, I'm going to share my tips for visiting New York City. For those of you who are visiting New York City for the first time, or even if you've visited New York City before. So these are just my 8 tips for visiting the city. Number 1 tip, this applies to any cities, not just New York City, but for me, number 1, do not spend your whole entire trip visiting the touristy spots. Those are not things that locals do. I mean, you don't go to the Statue of Liberty, the Dumbo area, on a daily basis. Yes, definitely you should visit those places, take pictures, but do not spend your whole entire trip doing all these touristy places every day, multiple times a day. I would say spend a day or two. If you have a 7-day trip, spend like maybe 2 days of doing these things, doing the Times Square, going to the Empire State, or one of those observation decks. Do not waste your trip by going to touristy places all the time, because when you go to touristy places, you see other tourists. You don't see what locals do. You don't get to experience the city, in my opinion. Number 2, are you going to stay in an Airbnb or a hotel? So either way, it's up to you. It's preference. In my opinion, Airbnb in the US is just the worst ever, because first, I pay to be in that Airbnb, and usually it's almost the same price of a hotel, but then it comes with so many chores, which if I don't do those chores, I would be fined with fees that are very, very high. I don't want to be spending in a place where I have to put the sheets in the laundry machine or wash the dishes. For me, that's not vacation. That's like just being at home. I get it. You want to have the comfort of like a home in New York, but most apartments are really tiny anyway. It's just like being in a hotel room, so it doesn't matter. And you're going to be outside for so long walking around the city. The last thing you want to do is to go home and wash your dishes. So for me, that's a no, but if that's your thing, go for it. Especially if you're like a family, people that are like, a group that are more than 2 people. I could see why Airbnb is a little bit more attractive for you, because you get more space and you can cook your breakfast, so you can save money. You don't have to eat out all the time. I get that. If you're staying in a hotel, know that New York hotel tend to be really, really small. Space is an issue here. So what you get in Texas for $250, you probably get like a 5-star hotel with, huge space. Here, $250 is a tiny, maybe 3-star hotel with a tiny space. So keep that in mind, especially with your luggage and everything, because there's not a lot of space in New York hotel room unless you pay really high prices. Number 3, if you're staying in a hotel or an Airbnb, make sure you stay away from Times Square area. That is not the place where you want to spend your days in. You don't want to stay in a hotel around the Times Square area, because it is so busy. So when you explore the city, every time you want to go back to your hotel, you have to pass this craziness that we call Times Square. So Times Square, New Yorkers avoid Times Square at all costs, unless when we have to go see a Broadway show or something like that. But when we don't, we avoid it at all costs. So yes, that is probably like the iconic landmark of New York. But notice when you go to Times Square, you don't see New Yorkers. You see other tourists from other countries, other cities. So it's not a place that locals would just chill and hang out. So yes, definitely visit Times Square if it's your first time, and I know it's a must, but try not to stay in a hotel around the area. It's not worth it. You don't get to experience the real New York. So Times Square is like in the middle. New York is like a grid system. So go a little bit to the east, a little bit to the west. You don't have to stay in the 40s. Times Square is on 42nd. You can go lower, you can go stay in the 30s, or go higher, stays in like the 50s. Yeah, so explore other areas. Times Square is not, it's not it. Number 4, and the most important thing, is that when you are traveling, visiting New York City, you're going to be out and about possibly your entire day. So public toilet is important. Whenever you see a public toilet, you go. It doesn't matter that you don't feel like going yet, you just go, because the next one you'll see maybe a few hours away. So it's not very easy to find public toilets. So there are some tips, there are some places you can go to, like the Apple Store. Museums are always good. Of course, if you're having coffee in a restaurant, Starbucks is not the best place because there's always a line, and a lot of times their toilet is broken. So I wouldn't really recommend Starbucks. Gallery, if you go to gallery, restaurants are definitely a way to go. Department stores, if you go to Bloomingdale's, Bergdorf's, they would have toilet. The library, so public places like that would have toilet. It's not very easy to find. It is available, but it's not the easiest thing to find, a toilet. So when you see a public toilet that is available, just go. Just go. That's my tip for you. Just go. You never know. Number 5, it's related to my first tip. New York City has so many things to offer. It has thousands of restaurants, cafes, places, shops, like so many museums, galleries. So do not feel like you have to see everything at once, especially if you have a short, limited amount of time. I feel like 7 days is still short for New York because there are just so many things to see. And if you have less than 7 days, it's even crazier. So do not stress yourself by thinking that you have to see everything. You don't have to go to all the observation decks. Just choose one. You don't have to go to the Summit, Empire State, the Edge. Choose one of those. And restaurants, go with what you like. You don't have to go to all the restaurants. And do not believe in TikTok. Okay, yes, there are really good recommendations on TikTok, but a lot of times these are very social media driven places, and there are a lot of good local places that are not huge on social media. I've been here for years, and there are so many places that I've never gone to. It's just impossible. New York is just so full of things to do. Number 6 is a tip for you. Pay attention when you're walking. Do not just stop abruptly to look at your phone. You go to the side and then stop and look at your phone, because people have places to go. People tend to walk fast. They have to go to work. They have to pay rent. People have places to go. Also, when you cross the street, even though it is red light, always make sure you see left and right, because the bikes are crazy. The bikes can come out of nowhere and you'll get hit. So pay attention while you're walking, especially on the subway, or if you're like on the escalator, make sure you're just on one side. Do not be in groups and block other people. It is very, very important. 7 is the transportation system. New York is such an amazing place to walk. So walk everywhere, wear comfortable shoes, and if it's like too far, you can always take the bus. I prefer the bus nowadays than the subway, because the subway is just crazy. It hasn't recovered since 2020. It's gone crazier. The crazy people in the subway used to be adorable, somewhat understandable, but now they're just plain aggressive. So if you take the subway, be very careful, be aware of what your surrounding is. If not, take the bus. I love the bus. Walking is amazing too. You can also bike, but just be very careful when you bike, because the traffic here is just crazy. There's city bike that you can take. Of course, the taxi. I love the yellow taxi. You can always hail a cab. And if you don't want to hail, you can also upload the app, which is Curb. So that is the app for the yellow taxi. Uber and Lyft, they're available, but Uber is not my favorite because their prices in New York are just insane. I don't know what they're thinking, but their prices is just insane. Most of the time, the yellow taxi would be a cheaper option for you. If you're in a group of 3 or 4 people, instead of like paying $2.75 for each subway ride to go somewhere, there are 3 or 4 of you, take the cab. If it's not too far, just take a cab if you can't walk, because it saves you time. Number 8, my last tip, let's talk about restaurants. Do not, I repeat, do not eat at a chain restaurant. You don't have to go to the McDonald's or the Burger King or the Pizza Hut or whatever chain restaurant it is. Do not go there. I repeat, there are so many restaurants that have amazing food in New York, and there's also so many cheap eats. And if you want to be on a budget, you don't have to go to restaurants. There you can get a slice of pizza for very cheap. You can get dumplings in Chinatown for very cheap. You can get like tacos at Los Tacos, which is like an amazing taco place. You can get burgers. You don't have to go to McDonald's. Get Shake Shack, get Five Guys, something else. Get a local one like 7th Street Burger. There are so many options for food. You can go really cheap, you can go really expensive. If you want to go to a very sought after restaurant, make sure that you make a reservation. Some places take reservations 1 month before, like the Polo Bar. They take reservation a month before, so plan this before your trip. If you want to go to places like Carbone, and like reservations take months, so be aware of this, that if it's a very sought after restaurant, most likely it will be very difficult to get a reservation if you do it during your trip. So try to plan it before your trip. Some places do take walk-ins, and my tip for this is that when you do walk-ins, eat food at odd times. I like to eat my brunch/lunch at 11:30, just when they're open, 11:45 or even 12. Just when they open, it's not very crowded. People tend to eat like 1. Go to places at odd times, or have a very late lunch at 2:30 or 3, so the traffic would die down and you will get a seat faster. And the last one is, of course, don't forget to tip. You must tip in New York. The minimum is 15% of your bill to tip. You have to tip. They will ask you if you don't tip, so this is very important. 15 is the minimum, but 20% is the acceptable rate. So try to tip 20% if you can. Make sure that you calculate that into your budget. Okay, so those are my 8 tips for people who want to visit New York City. Let me know in the comment section down below if you find these tips helpful, and if you want me to do more New York City recommendation videos. I would love to do that more in the future. Please like and comment down below if you like this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on my next one. Bye.